holiday of Shavuot is a perfect paradigm for the richness and depth and complexity of the Jewish people. There are three modes that we can think about in terms of Shavuot that I want to share with you today as we count our way from the freedom of Passover toward the receiving of Torah at Sinai and Shavuot. The first model is one that we've already mentioned, in fact. It's the model that has the most impact on Jewish law and wisdom, and that's the model of Matan Torah. The second model, which is the model that has permeated all of our rabbinic literature and the way in which most of us live our lives, is the idea of what does it mean to be Kabbalat HaTorah, the receiving of the Torah. And the third model, which is a model that has only come about in the modern era, is the idea not of Matan Torah, the giving of Torah, nor of Kabbalat HaTorah, the receiving of the Torah, but rather of Kiyum Brit, that actually it's the living out of the covenant that should be our celebration of Shavuot. So let's take a couple of minutes just to look at each of these models and how they find themselves in our text. In the first model of Matan Torah, we're basically focusing on how the Torah, the revelation of Torah in the Torah itself is discussed, namely primarily in terms of Mount Sinai, what's communicated from Moses to the elders, and of course, according to the Mishnah, to the Great Assembly, and later throughout our tradition. It comes from the statement of God, of the idea of God giving the Torah as a gift to the Jewish people, to which the people responded, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will hear. That is our response to the gift of Torah. And we even return to this idea of the gift of Torah every day in our tefillot in terms of ahava rabbah, that the greatest gift of love that God gave to the Jewish people is the gift of Torah. That Torah is, in a sense, the document that proves God's love of the Jewish people. And in fact, a possible additional metaphor is that, in fact, Torah is the ketubah, is the marriage contract between God and the Jewish people. That is the power of the gift of Matan Torah, the gift of Torah. In terms of Kabbalat Torah, the receiving of Torah, we note that it's not as simple in rabbinic literature as it is in the Bible. The receiving of Torah for the rabbis was fairly complex. Why should the Jewish people have said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear in response to that gift? They have to actually receive it. There's one phenomenal rabbinic text in Tractate Shabbat, which actually says that the Jewish people, it demonstrates that perhaps the Jewish people weren't so ready to receive Torah, and it depicts God gathering the people b'tachtit har, not just at the foot of the mountain, but literally under the mountain. It tells that God picks up the mountain, turns it over kigigit, like some kind of reverse jug or some huge upside-down mountain, holds it over the heads of the Jewish people and says, if you receive my Torah, good, mutav, and if not, imlav, here will be your graves. Here's the mountain over the heads of the Jewish people, receive it, and if not, here will be your grave, here you will die. Not really the most beautiful, loving image of the giving of Torah, but actually an image very disturbing but important for the rabbis to wrestle with, of the Jewish people being coerced in a sense, being forced to say, we will receive it, we have no other choice. But the rabbis go on to comment on that and ask, when really did the Jewish people mikabel, receive the Torah willingly? And they take us all the way much later in history to the book of Esther, where we have the idea of kimu v'kiblu. And the rabbis take that to mean, we will observe and we will receive. We will uphold and we will do, now that we know the Torah, now that we've had a history of being able to live it and understand it, now we can do it. It's only in the days of Esther that they could choose to receive Torah. So this is a very powerful idea of the tension of what it means to receive something that you don't know out of coercion versus being willing to receive something and do it and accept it, having known it, having had the chance to study it. And I think that for the rabbis portrays not only the difficulty of reception and of agreement, but it also depicts for the rabbis the idea that actually Torah is something that is both given to us that we're obligated to observe, but it also is for the rabbis a statement of how much we do need to wrestle with the Torah, how much the Torah is something that you cannot really observe and uphold unless you actually know it and live it in history and in your lives. That's a bit of an additional commentary on the commentary of the Talmud in that Tractate Shabbat about the giving and the receiving of Torah at Mount Sinai. The question for modern Jews brings us to the third model of receiving Torah. namely that it's not about the giving and the receiving of some immutable fixed idea of texts, both written and oral, that is true for most forms of traditional Judaism, but actually Shavuot is not about giving or receiving the Torah. It is about standing and saying, Kiyum Habrit, Mikayamim et Habrit. We are upholding the covenant. It's less about the specific interpretation of a particular law and more about the way in which one lives one's life. A modern thinker, the theologian Eugene Borowitz, puts it this way, that Shavuot is about celebrating a covenantal relationship with God established at that moment of Sinai, but Shavuot is about celebrating it, not just the written or oral tradition, but that living discipline which flows from the consciousness of standing in direct personal relationship with God, not merely as a private self. It's not that Buberian existential notion of me and my relationship with God, but I'm standing in an ongoing relationship, a personal relationship with God, not only as a private self, but as one of the community with whom God has covenanted. Those are the three possible ways of understanding Shavuot. Chag Sameach.